everyone to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Earlier this evening, the Board of Selectmen had a 6 o'clock workshop with Mart as we explore ways to expand our bus service for residents in town. So we are looking at ways to extend the bus service from Town Hall and also to the Whalum area at the CVS crossing. Also to work with existing routes to connect with some of the train schedules to Boston. So we'll be keeping people informed. It was a very good session. I think it will provide a really good service that is lacking in Lunenburg for public transportation to those areas, and we will keep you posted as we progress and when it will be coming online. I don't know if anybody else on the board would like to comment on that meeting, but just wanted to inform everyone. Any opening public comment from the board? Okay, one announcement that we spoke earlier. It was suggested earlier last year, or late last year, that we have a recognition, and all of us on the board thought it was appropriate to have a recognition for all the volunteers in town who serve on all different boards, commissions, committees, etc. So an invitation went out that on behalf of the Board of Selectmen and in recognition of volunteer service to the town, the Board of Selectmen would like to take the opportunity to invite all of our volunteers for our first annual Volunteer Appreciation Social. The event will be held at the Eagle House Senior Center next Tuesday from 6 to 8 p.m. Please join us for light refreshments, camaraderie, and an opportunity to meet your volunteer colleagues. This is a good opportunity for prospective volunteers to meet current board and committee members, so please encourage friends and neighbors who may be interested in serving the town to attend the event, and they can talk with different members of different boards on which they may be interested in serving. So we look forward to having good attendance there from people who are serving and have spent anywhere from 6 months to many, many years on different committees and boards, and also meeting new people who may be interested in serving in the future. So,
Mr. Chairman, I just want to emphasize the fact that anyone who's curious about the potential to serve on a committee is more than welcome and doesn't have to wait for an invitation. We would love to see them come, excuse me, to the meeting and get to ask questions and meet folks that have volunteered to help the town.
Thank you. Any public comment from the public this evening? Please. Good evening.
Good evening. Dave Prokofiew, 733 West Street. I'm a little nervous. I haven't been up here in a while. I'd like to talk to you tonight about, I'm just going to read from a prepared statement that I made, and then if you want to ask me questions or whatever, we can do that afterwards. I'd like to talk to you tonight about the Green Community Task Force. As you know, I was one member of a large vocal group in town called STOP, which stood for Solar Threatens Our Property. We were, as the chairman of the Green Communities Task Force likes to dismiss us, a vocal minority in one sense, and in another sense, we were a vocal majority. We were a majority of the homeowners abutting these two monstrous industrial solar power stations on Chase Road and Pleasant Street. Plus, we had lots of non-abutting citizens in our group. When the latest proposed commercial solar development was allowed to address the planning board in spite of being improperly noticed and not even comporting with the bylaw on its face, our numbers doubled, and we we combined forces to form a new group, which is now actively working together and is called Lunenburg Responsible Solar Initiative. We think you'll find every time a commercial solar facility is proposed in residential zones, our numbers will increase. The Green Community Task Force was created by an act of this board several years ago. It was tasked with developing a plan to reach 5 criteria set forth by the Commonwealth to allow towns who meet the criteria to access certain grant money. The committee members are appointed and they operate in an advisory capacity to the Board of Selectmen, if I'm not mistaken. In its brief history, the committee has been allowed to write policy in the form of an initial flawed solar bylaw, which looked nothing like the Doer model bylaw, and created what we call the first great solar debacle of 2011, necessitating the creation of our STOP organization just to combat the problem as citizens. Between that time and now, they have appointed 2 members who work for solar companies, and their chairman is clearly committed to permitting industrial scale solar in residential areas, as he has indicated by lending his support to a solar project that did not even comply with our town's bylaw. Now it has come to our attention that this industry-stacked committee, with 1 member whose planned commercial solar venture was just rejected by the planning board, wishes to be instrumental in changing the solar bylaw once more. We feel that reliance on this stacked committee, with their imbued authority as an advisory panel, usurps the power of the people. They may be able to speak to you about technological aspects of solar, but they do not represent the people of Lunenburg or their desires when it comes to questions of solar generation and the bylaw. They have no authority to speak on behalf of the people because they are not elected. We don't believe Lunenburg ought to be in the habit of changing her bylaws to fit the agenda of 1 or more members of the Green Community Task Force. And it has become apparent that some things need to change. The task force has succeeded in its charge. The town of Lunenburg is now a green community, having met all 5 criteria. Because they have completed their task, they technically have no work of substance to do. Therefore, we respectfully ask that you either dismiss them with our thanks on a job well done, redeploy them with limited responsibilities, or perhaps compartmentalize their duties within an existing functionary position, perhaps those of the planning director. If individual members of the Green Community Task Force wish to change the solar bylaw so they can benefit financially at the expense of their neighbors, let them fight for change as we do. Let them do it without the pseudo-authority of an officially sanctioned position in town government. If the BOS must get involved with the solar bylaw, we respectfully ask you to stand with us, the citizens, in support of our existing bylaw, which has proven its worth in protecting the health, safety, and welfare of Lunenburg residents. Thank you. Any questions?
I have no questions.
Okay.
I do have one comment, and that is they don't have any authority beyond the fact of us asking them to review things. Well, actually 2 comments. The second one being, I'll address first, which is they have been recharged. They are no longer the task force. They are overseeing the grant funding applications and the grant money distributions to projects that are part of the green communities, being part of the green communities of the Commonwealth. So they have been recharged.
Okay.
Number 2 is they are, as you said, advisory, so they don't really have any force of anything as speaking except as an advisory board, and they have no authority to change the bylaw. They can certainly, as anybody who's a resident of the town, have the ability to have input into how and if that bylaw should be changed. So I just don't want it to be overstated what their authority is, which there is no authority.
Okay.
So
They have no authority.
they have no legal authority. They can't change the bylaw. They can only recommend things, as can anybody else, as you just did tonight in your comments. So they're allowed to do that, and that is what we ask them to advise us to do. But obviously, town meeting is what chooses to either change or not change the bylaw, as it were. I mean,
Okay. And they are advisory to you or the planning board, or both?
They're appointed by us, but they're advising to the town.
Okay. And you have the authority to dismiss them if you wish?
We do.
Okay. Or we could do it at town meeting?
No, I don't think the town meeting doesn't have authority to dismiss boards created by this board.
Oh, you have to do it?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
And they're coming here tonight at 8 o'clock, so.
Mr. Chairman, the other question I have is that I thought it was the planning board that adopted the solar bylaw and not the Green Communities Task Force.
Well, they didn't adopt it. Town meeting adopts it,
Right,
but they're the
but-
ones who put it forward.
The planning board,
The planning board
Planning
puts it
board.
forward.
not the Green Communities
That's
Task
correct.
Force.
But it was a draft that came through the Green Communities
From the
Task
state.
Force
They worked
to
on
the
it.
planning
Okay,
board.
so the initial solar bylaw that was flawed, you're saying came from the Green Communities Task Force?
That's what I was told.
Okay,
I would agree with that.
And then,
Okay,
then it would
I
have
wasn't
gone to
aware
the
of that.
planning board and then to town meeting.
okay,
Okay.
okay.
Which, I'm pretty sure they're not supposed to make policy, right?
They don't have any policy-making
But
capability.
they wrote that bylaw.
Well, that doesn't give them authority. That somebody asked them to do it, and then the planning board adopted it as their own. So they're
Okay.
certainly within the planning board has the authority
Okay.
to make policy.
Okay.
The other point would be is that they are a public body. They have minutes and they have meetings which are posted on the town agenda. If they're meeting when they're not, then you need to let us know.
Well, their last, I think, minutes were 2011 or something. No, what was it there? Well, I'll let someone else speak to that, but thank you.
Okay. They're supposed to have posted meetings with minutes.
Any other public comment from the public?
Yeah, my name is Greg Bittner. I live at 129 Pleasant Street in Lunenburg. I echo a lot of what Mr. Prokofiew has said. I'm here as a resident. I know there's a process, but I'm just here to voice my discontent with how the town went and how the town adopts policy. I know there is a current bylaw proposed. I don't know if it has been proposed to this board. I'm not sure what the process is. It's on the director's webpage.
The planning board is, well, first of all, the warrant for the town meeting is open. Have we received anything from them yet?
Not from the planning.
Not from the planning board. So we have not received anything officially. I have certainly heard about them talking about it. It got talked about during the application of the special permit for the solar farm that was proposed, as was referenced in Mr. Prokoview's comments. So there was talk about it, but there was nothing official that we have been given.
And is that the process that it is first
Well,
the
it would come
proposal
from
is
the
up on the
board.
town website?
It would come
so I'm
from the
just
planning board first, and then it would get submitted to be included in the town warrant.
So it would not come across your desk as far as...
That's when we would become notified of it.
When
When
they
it's
were-
included in the warrant.
Right, once it's included as an official article in the warrant. And then they would have public hearings on it, at their board meeting.
Right, I understand. I was involved in the
Right.
drafting of it this first time. And then also some of my discontent lies, and again, I haven't heard what you had to say, and I know there hasn't been a lot of discussion, but the Green Communities Task Force has medium solar on their agenda, and a planning board member has proposed or posted a proposal for a bylaw, so I think it's being talked about, and I just want to use this opportunity to make sure that my voice is heard in all areas, just so you know that my opinion. I feel their handling of the institution and implementation of the current bylaw has been lacking. Due to the last proposal, I don't understand how they were able to vote on that when it was proposed far outside of the guidelines of the current bylaw.
I would say, because I spoke against that
Okay.
as well, they were certainly within their rights to hear, they have to have the hearing. Somebody applied for the special permit. And I know a lot of people said it should have been dismissed on its face, but that's what the special permit hearing is for. So to hear that, and some of those terms were actually ruled upon by the zoning board of appeals before it even got to the planning board. So, I personally have some questions about the process too, so I'm glad that people are here speaking out, and this is how you get and stay involved. And as things come before the town meeting and before as the warrant article comes out, if this will need to be discussed, and hopefully it'll be discussed very well before it gets to town meeting, but certainly even on town meeting floor. And I know people have strong feelings about how they would want to see it adopted, and that's what we need. We need people to be really actively involved in it. So I appreciate both of you coming forward, and everybody who's in support in the audience, too, for coming
I
forward.
appreciate your encouragement to the residents and to get involved, and that's why I'm here. Again, I don't want to debate the whole issue. I just want to make my opinion known to this board so they know where I'm coming from if they hear me speak again. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay. Sure. We're going to go down to number 2, a review and discuss the proposed Tennessee Gas Kinder Morgan pipeline project and upcoming public meeting. I'm sure people are aware by now of the pipeline being proposed. I'd be the first to say that I'm not really sure about where the pipeline is going now, because there was some, I know the lateral is still going through Lunenburg. That part I know. But the main pipeline was going to go through northern Massachusetts And then there was talk about not doing that and going through southern New Hampshire instead. I know we have people here who are willing to speak on this, who've done a lot of research on it, so if you would like to speak now, that would be great. Just introduce yourself.
My name is Sarah Kammer. I live on Lancaster Ave. I don't actually abut any pipeline currently, or I don't think I will in the future. But it's of concern to me because it can potentially have a huge impact on Lunenburg. You know, over the past 3 years that I've lived here, I've seen numerous things debated, everything from what's going to happen with solar in this community, trying to get commuter services and transportation for people in the community. I've seen people debate how to balance the budget and maintain education. And those things are all really important. And this pipeline has the potential to impact the community far more than those things that I've seen debated in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals and in the Planning Board. And I believe that Kinder Morgan as a company and the pipeline plan are a pretty big deal, and they have the potential to impact our community more than all of those other projects. And they haven't come before our Planning Board, our Zoning Board of Appeals, our community asking if we wanted the pipeline, but they've been telling us we need it. And they haven't shown that it'll have any economic impact, good or bad, to our town specifically. And they haven't sought our approval in any way to use the FERC, and have been using the FERC process to further their commercial interests. And that's what they are. They're not for the greater good. They're a commercial entity, and they're trying to cut across all of these zones that are residential. If any developer tried to do that in Lunenburg, they would be subject to so much intense community scrutiny, and they would be walking away right now with a denial from pretty much everybody in the community. Besides impacting residential areas, there's areas where it impacts zones protected by the Wetlands Protection Act because it crosses areas where there's river recharge. It's also crossing town lands and public utilities, like our roads. So there's a lot of risk involved. And right now, Lunenburg's one of the few communities around that hasn't said, no, we don't want this. And other communities have. A lot of communities in Massachusetts near us have. Townsend, Pepperell, Groton, everyone else around us. And my concern is by not taking any kind of action, it's giving them a lot of opportunity to do other things in our community. I don't know what their plans are. And nobody does. And that's really my problem with them. It's not personal, but, I like to know what's going on. And that's how I became interested in this at all, period. And it's just not the behavior of a good neighbor. I watched someone who was trying to be a good neighbor, and whether you agree or not with what happened to the gas station, he was far more involved in talking to the community for his gas station and the people in this town than Kinder Morgan has been so far. And so I really just want this community to start taking an active role and looking at what they can do as the second set of open houses after they filed their draft impact statement to FERC come about, which there's one January 29th at the middle school in Fitchburg. I don't know why it's in Fitchburg, because the lateral doesn't go anywhere through Fitchburg. It goes through Lunenburg. Maybe the school is unavailable because of our excellent building going on. I don't know, but it's pretty far compared to driving 10 minutes to our high school. And in the future, there are going to be there's an environmental impact statement that has to be drafted. And there are just a lot of things that are going to come before our planning board and our conservation groups and our public utilities that really are going to require scrutiny by everybody in town. And I know less about that process because I've been looking more at what parcels are going to be impacted and what the environmental impact is. And I really don't know about the FERC process the way Elaine over here does, because she's been very involved with the whole statewide and now also dual state, because it's probably going to go through New Hampshire and then down through. But I'm concerned because there's no discernible reason that they would need another lateral through Lunenburg when they already have a lateral. It doesn't seem to be going to any utility station within Lunenburg. And so what is the purpose of that? Is it so they can then add more gas that goes down into Worcester? And if they're going to do that, and Townsend fights really hard not to have a compressor station, which they are fighting very hard not to have, that juncture where this lateral comes down and this other lateral goes across seems like a great place to expand services. And if you look online about the noise level that compressor stations have, the ability for gas leaks in the area, these are things that are hazardous to human health and the environment, but they're also really annoying. And, you know, the discussion about solar and how irritating it is to have the buzz of some solar in your backyard or the glare of solar in your backyard, this is nothing in decibel level and irritation compared to a compressor station right in Lunenburg. And I moved here because I like the woods and I like the quiet. I accept that I live on Lancaster Ave and I will hear cars on the commute. It helps me get up in the morning. But I do not want to hear gas burning off in the middle of the night. And that's when it happens. So I really want you guys, want the town to get involved in this process. Think about what we want to do for environmental impact statements and how we want to handle it. I have limited time, but I can help if you want. And I'll leave this to Elaine.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Elaine Moroz. I live on Chestnut Street, and I've been active in the anti-pipeline movement for actually about a year, and you haven't met me because even though I live on Chestnut Street, my family owns property for over 100 years in Winchendon, and the pipeline at that time was intended to go directly through our property. So that had my attention about looking at the big picture of the pipeline. And now, as Tom said, yes, the pipeline preferred route has changed at this point, and I can just tell you briefly, you know, big pictures, and I'm very happy to send you links to information about where it exactly is going, but it's pretty much coming into New York, into Massachusetts from roughly the same place out of New York, and then running up, coming into the Warwick area, which I think is Franklin County, and in Warwick it cuts across the bottom of New Hampshire and doesn't re-enter Massachusetts in the main pipeline, the main 36-inch pipeline, doesn't re-enter Massachusetts until the Dracut area, which is their terminal point. What Sarah was referring to is the lateral. There has always been a lateral coming through Lunenburg, and that still exists. It's now, instead of coming off of a place in Townsend, it's now coming off of the main line that is in Mason, New Hampshire. So it will still come through from Mason, New Hampshire, into Townsend, and then down to Lunenburg. And and I have a map here. I was part of the statewide summit that was organized back in November when the original route was still through Massachusetts. And this map indicates the parcels that citizens were able to ascertain from the Kinder Morgan maps about where it would be going, because at that point Kinder Morgan had provided very little in terms of data. In fact, they still haven't provided very much at all, as you know, because I've been at your meetings regarding that. So you can see that it enters from Townsend and basically drops straight down, crosses a two-way close to Walmart, and just east of Walmart, I believe, and ends at the same place that the existing pipeline lateral ends, behind Twin City Baptist Church. And I really, you know, you probably know more about what that arrangement is than I do. What I wanted to, I believe the reason you have this on the agenda tonight is because of the open houses that are coming up in next week, actually. And I just have a few things for you that you might find useful, and I'm happy to leave everything with you that I have and send you any more information you might want. Basically, what I tried to think about is what is it in particular that Lunenburg should be thinking about and what makes Lunenburg unique among some of the pipeline communities. Pretty much what's unique about us is that we already have a pipeline. And so I think that we can actually be instructive to other communities in having them understand some of the promises that are being made by Kinder Morgan. For example, how much revenue has the pipeline brought so far? I think that would be an easy thing for you to pull out. The existing pipeline is a little bit longer than the one that's going to come, so I would think whatever that is, whatever that is, again, would be the economic benefit. Kind of silly questions, but has it reduced energy costs in Lunenburg? Has it brought jobs to Lunenburg? There isn't any evidence, apparently, of that. On the other hand, as I said, I was involved in the statewide effort, and I wasn't necessarily looking for Lunenburg stories, but Lunenburg stories somehow found me, despite the fact, and I'm aware of at least 2 examples in the southern part of the pipe, the existing pipe, where in one example, a citizen apparently never had a problem with water in his basement until the pipeline was constructed, and then the water flows were changed, and then it was a problem that was severe enough that I heard from a real estate agent that actually made their sale of that house impossible, at least for at least one buyer. I've also heard another case, this is kind of interesting, that the pipeline, and the more engineering than I have, but the pipeline has basically there's an a current gets created by the movement of the gas in the pipeline, and the pipeline companies put on something they call a cathodic protection that's kind of an electricity flow in the back, so that if you have things going in the opposite directions, they cancel each other out. And so that keeps the pipeline itself from corroding, but apparently someone in Lunenburg had his own pipes, the service pipes to his house started to leak, or I don't know if it was his pipes or the town's pipes, but the copper was actually corroded by the closeness of the cathodic protect. It was protecting the pipeline, but it was actually damaging that other person's home. So those are just 2 examples, and I am sure there are probably more in Lunenburg, but I think it's something that those are 2 stories that are worthwhile everyone paying attention to as it risks going to more places. As Sarah talked about, they've never been to the planning board and they've never been to the zoning board. It's true, and they should be giving us more consideration, but the fact of the matter is that this whole process is determined by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and if the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission decides that whole project is worthwhile in their opinion, then they will approve it, and there really is very little that the state and the towns can do to stop it. The time to act on these things is right now, in terms of being able to keep active in the political process, to keep doing things, as Sarah mentioned, making ourselves take a stand so that there is at least the weight of the people behind it to force better understanding and better study of what the potential effects might be. Kinder Morgan is, they haven't exactly shown themselves to be great partners. They initially were not granting the request for information that you've asked them for. They've been misleading in a lot of their letters and presentations. I don't need to bore you with the details because you saw a lot of them. Even in these open houses, I don't think they've made a real effort to notify people that these open houses are coming, and they've located them in Fitchburg, which isn't even on, there's no parcel in Fitchburg is affected by the pipeline. They've recently asked all the planning boards to essentially do their work for them in terms of understanding where the critical areas are in town. That's a private entity coming in asking public to do something for them. If I asked the planning board to do something, the planning director to do something, I don't think that would be really granted, so there's no reason why that should be done for Kinder Morgan. And then, as Sarah also mentioned, I do think that there is a risk that this pipeline is, that this lateral is being developed to be able to service Worcester. And there's a lot of evidence for it. And probably the best piece of evidence, I don't have a big picture for, but I have a little picture that I'll pass around. This is the old plan, but the laterals are still the current plan. Coming down, this is the Lunenburg-Fitchburg lateral coming from the north to the south. That's part of the proposal at the moment. And then we have this little dangling area that's from Worcester to Bolton, and it's just kind of out there. It's not connected to the whole project at all. But you can draw the connection, because if you connect those two dots, that's exactly where the pipeline that goes in the south part of town and into Lancaster goes, and eventually goes into Bolton down there. So I think it's pretty clear that Kinder Morgan has a plan. They didn't just build that spur for or they aren't proposing that spur for nothing. And that the size of the overall project that Kinder Morgan is proposing is much, much larger than anything that is even being projected for New England as a whole to need. The size of the pipeline would be 2.2 billion cubic feet per day, and even the most aggressive estimates for New England's needs are about 0.4. So, we're talking 5 to 6 times larger. There's some speculation that Kinder Morgan already services Worcester and a lot of the southern part of the state through an existing pipeline that they have not been maintaining their right-of-ways, and they have been putting minimal maintenance into the pipeline, so that perhaps they would abandon the southern route and start servicing using the northern route and drop down. And what type of capacity changes would have to come, whether they would want to add a compressor station, make some other adjustments to the existing line in Lunenburg, don't know. These are all things that it would be good for us to be able to talk to Kinder Morgan about at the open houses. So I have a few things for you that I would just like to recommend either now or in the future. I mean, I don't expect you to take any stand tonight exactly, but I did prepare I took some of the resolutions that some of the towns have adopted, and I kind of cut and pasted and added a few that I thought would be relevant for Lunenburg, and I'll be happy to leave you those copies so you can consider them at your next meeting or something. There's also something, there's a lot of people in the state that are pretty opposed to this, and there's a lot of talent that's being put against it from the citizen point of view, even though they were doing it, in the evenings after they get home from work. There's one very good document that I'll also leave you and send digital copies as well, that talks about some of the things that boards and communities can start to be considering regarding the pipeline, either to discourage it being built initially by making it more expensive, or to protect the community in the unfortunate case if it did actually end up being approved. Although the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission can say, yes, you have to build the pipeline, they can't say that you can overrule any reasonable regulation in the town. So for example, one of the examples that's in here is that apparently when pipeline construction happens, they bring a whole bunch of people in from the south, and they dig, a lot, and they work into all hours of the night. And to restrict operating hours, for example, would be something that we could do in advance. Obviously, we'd have to have the law in our book before they got here. But it's an example of something that we can consider. That there's a lot of talk about, death by 1,000 cuts for Kinder Morgan, that if you can delay the process and make it more expensive, and if all communities are kind of in concert around that. I mean, I honestly think that was a big part of why they moved the pipeline to New Hampshire as opposed to leaving it in Massachusetts, is because of the community outcry. So I have that to leave with you as well. I also have, I want to encourage everybody to attend an open house, at least one open house that Kinder Morgan is going to be holding. They're required to hold these per the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission's process. I guess they're not required to hold them anywhere convenient, but they are going to have the meetings. The first open house will be next week, there's one in Milford, New Hampshire on Tuesday night, one in Berlin, Massachusetts on Wednesday night, and then the one in Fitchburg on Thursday night. I'm planning to go to the one in Milford and probably Berlin too, just because I want to get a feel for exactly what the how it's going to be conducted. They have some latitude about what types of questions they field, and it's going to be maybe like a trade show, but there's, we just kind of want to figure out what's going on. I think there's like probably 12 open houses or maybe more than that across the whole area. But this is the opportunity that we have to really understand the details of their plan, which they have been pretty much guarding pretty closely. The FERC process is these open houses will be happening over the next few weeks, and right after that, FERC, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, requires that they hold what they call scoping sessions, and these scoping sessions are to develop what the draft environmental impact report needs to include. So at that stage, if we learn things about the pipeline and we can get some questions answered next week, then we can go to these scoping sessions that I have heard nothing other than they're sticking with their original plan and that they would be happening per the original plan in March. At the scoping sessions is when we get to say, hey, we think that this is an environmental impact that needs to be studied at the next phase of the process. And so up until the scoping sessions, there's a pretty good, it's a rather informal process, but at some point, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission then turns it into an adjudicatory process where it's more difficult as a private citizen or even as a town to participate. And that if we want to be serious about pursuing this, it would be advisable to have some very specific legal assistance that is familiar with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. And I think that this is something where I would look to the Select Board to try to coordinate with the other towns, at least Townsend and Bolton, Berlin, North Boylston, West Boylston, at a minimum, are still very involved in on the lateral, obviously, and so to the extent that there'd be a way to coordinate across towns, it could maybe save the town some money and still serve our purposes. So, I guess I would encourage you to go to the open houses and ask really, simple questions like, why didn't you come to Lunenburg to have an open house? What about, we've heard stories about people having their pipes damaged. I mean, how did that happen? And how do you remediate in a situation like that? And why can't you anticipate things like pipes breaking and things like the groundwater flow changing directions? And doesn't that argue for a different type of environmental impact report study than it would if you didn't know those things had happened, for example? And then just other questions like how close would you build to a water supply? How close would you build to a public well or a private well? I mean, I think if you start to think about all of your questions regarding the pipeline, what's your plan for that dangling pipeline down in Bolton? And can you please be upfront and honest with us? Because honestly, if they are planning to do that, it seems to me that should be included as part of the regulatory process and the review process at this point. So, I don't want to spend all night, but I just wanted to let you know that I'm very happy to help to the extent that I can. I'm very happy to leave you everything that I have. And for people at home too, I've set up a little email for Lunenburg residents who are interested. elburgstopkm@gmail.com. elburgstop, LBURGSTOPKM @gmail.com, and that comes to me. And just so I can kind of sort out all the things that are coming into my inbox recently. I'd be happy to have this map displayed someplace in town. Maybe MRPC actually printed. It was citizen effort to do the work. MRPC printed this map. I think it's a town asset. The library maybe. I'm trying to think of the places that people would be most likely to be able to see it. Just because there's so many little town halls.
We'll work it out with the
library. So if you want me to leave it with you, I can, or I can bring it to them myself. Whatever you'd like.
let's leave it here and we'll
Okay.
work it out with the library.
All right,
Just ask.
I'll pull that off the
Do you
board.
happen to know, by the way, the size of the lateral, as far as the size of the pipe, since you've?
Yeah, 12 inches. The lateral is 12 inches, but it's interesting, it's still 1,460 pounds per square inch. So that's, that's the same pressure as going through the 36-inch pipe. But, yeah, this is, it's 12 inches, 3 points.
And the upgrade that they did, when Tennessee Valley did the upgrade, replacement of the pipe of the existing lateral, do you know wasn't that an 8-inch pipe?
I don't know, and that's one of, that's a question I think that we need to ask them at the open houses, well, what that is and what's that maximum operating pressure. Yeah, that I do not know.
I think it was close to like 20 inches. I live right there at the Pleasant Street station, so I took the kids down to watch them dig the hole.
I didn't think it was that big, but maybe, I'd have to look it up. Okay.
Okay.
I know it was over a foot. The original was a foot or something like that. And they should probably
I'll
Yeah, I don't
open it
know.
up to the board. Anybody has any questions, comments, et cetera?
I've expressed my concern about this pipeline for a while. I'll note that in Yellowstone Park, the oil pipeline leaked 50,000 gallons, which is causing havoc there. Oil is not as flammable as natural gas, of course. So I'm concerned with any structure that will be subject to lack of maintenance or land shifting and other things like that. I welcome the communications there. I've been keeping track of what was going on. I certainly would support a resolution of this board against it.
So, Carrie, should I just give these to you?
I will comment that at one of the open houses that was held at Lunenburg High School, I spoke very strongly against it. I remain very strongly against it. I have a Stop the Pipeline sign in front of my home, being against it, and for many reasons. First of all, from a selectman point of view and a process point of view, I think everything that Ms. Cameron and Ms. Mraz said is absolutely true about the company. Anything but forthcoming, anything but honest. I almost had to restrain a laugh when Ms. Mraz said we should ask them what they're going to do with that spur and bolt, and maybe they'll answer us honestly. We haven't even been able to get a listing of properties that they have sent letters to asking for residents' permissions to go through, and we need to do that. And we've continued to do that, and we have not gotten any response from them on those properties. I would say if anybody out there got those letters and you are interested in not having that happen and you are against the pipeline, please let this board and this town know, because we'd like to have the full weight of people. I don't want to misrepresent people. Maybe there are people out there who want it going in their backyard. But if you don't, let us know so we can all work together towards that. So they have not been forthcoming. The fact that they haven't had they don't even call it the Lunenburg lateral, they call it the Fitchburg lateral when it doesn't even touch Fitchburg. This is all smoke and mirrors marketing. It's bait and switch, all of that stuff. And I couldn't be more forthcoming against my disappointment at the very least, my disdain at the very highest for their behavior in this whole process. So I won't go on about that. I think we need to get involved with the Conservation Commission. I think we have to get involved with the Board of Health. I know Deerfield gave a large document why they're against this from their Board of Health, and I think we should present this to our Board of Health to review and look at that, certainly with the waters, the conservation land, and the headwaters of some of the streams that it's going through. We have to take that under consideration with the Conservation Commission. But then this week, actually just 2 days ago, underscored an underlying principle that I stated why I was against it at the open house at the Lunenburg High School, and that is twofold. So number one is the fact that the one thing they were honest about is that this pipeline will be the transport of fracked gas. They were very clear on that. If it wasn't for fracking, this pipeline wouldn't exist. New York State, the governor of New York State has banned fracking in the state because of safety and environmental concerns. And I think to myself, what is going to happen as other state governments look at that if more and more people, with the evidence coming out, ban it, then we're going to have this pipeline that's not going to have anything through it because you won't be able to frack. That's problem number one. Problem number two, of course, is more serious, which is just yesterday there was a report that 11 water wells and aquifers in California were closed under the suspicion of contaminated groundwater in those locations because of fracking. They were closed in July, and it has been confirmed that 9 of those 11 have contaminated groundwater in the tune of somewhere around 2 billion gallons of water. That is not something that you skim off like an oil spill, which is bad enough. This is something you can't get out of the ground. It just takes time to settle out, and it could take decades to get out of there. And this is from a state that probably has one of the worst droughts in the state's history, and they're contaminating groundwater. It's not a safe process. Every evidence that comes about shows it's not a safe process. So I cannot be for a pipeline where, even though fracking is not possible in Massachusetts because we don't have the shale reserves, I won't support a pipeline that's just going to allow it to be fracked in someone else's backyard and pollute their area. I just can't be for that. And I think that is, to me, a big component of what we should be saying to FERC, because evidence after evidence across the state, across the country is coming out. You know, Texas just had 13 earthquakes in a 24-hour period in one place because of fracking. You know, how much has to happen before people say, we just have to look for other ways for energy? And I know Kinder Morgan is going to use the fact that electric went up by 40%, and they're going to say, we don't have enough natural gas to supply the energy companies. And that may or may not be true, but certainly building something 5 times the size that they need is not helpful. And certainly scaring people into it just shouldn't be the way we do policy. We really need a better energy policy in the country, and this, to me, isn't part of that energy policy. So I am more than happy to vote, as Mr. Ebersol said, to vote against it and support that opposition in any way I can. And I think we need to get every resident who's against it involved, and I think we need to get every board who has any authority for health and conservation, environmental purposes in the region and the town involved to fight against it. So I appreciate both of you coming forward to giving us this information. And for all those reasons, I don't know if we want to do it tonight, if we want to wait till our first meeting in February, but certainly I would be for any resolution against the pipeline going here in Lunenburg.
I agree.
I share the frustration of everyone about the lack of information from Kinder Morgan. I have all of the same concerns, namely my biggest concern is some of the environmental impacts as well as the potential impacts to residential homes in the area. Share your concerns about fracking. I have all of those same concerns. But frankly, I don't know enough about the project, and that's one of my biggest frustrations, is trying to get the details of exactly what they're proposing, where they're proposing it. I'm not at a point where I'm ready to make a resolution against the pipeline simply because I don't have enough information. I will say that I'm extremely concerned. I'm very frustrated with Kinder Morgan's. You know, the first time they came here, they talked about how they want to be a partner and how they want to be upfront and how they want to share information, and it's just ludicrous because they have been anything but. I'm also very outraged at the process itself, that it's so incredibly difficult to get information about what parcels are impacted, exactly what they're proposing. Getting the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board in front of this so that they can identify areas of concern. So what I am extremely concerned about the process. Have a lot of reservations about the projects in and of itself. I do plan to attend at least one of the open houses so that I can try to educate myself more. But I personally, I'm not at a point where I would approve, or I would support a resolution against it yet.
I can't say anything to disagree with what's been said up here. The only point I would make to Mrs. Bertram is that I think the burden of that information is on them. And we have asked several times for that information, and we didn't get it. Mm-hmm. So I would be supportive. I don't know that I've heard enough from the town to say that they want us to do that, but I haven't heard anybody object to it either. and the fact that Kinder Morgan has been disingenuous at least, and the lack of transparency is, as far as I'm concerned, the burden of education is on them, and I would be supportive of a resolution.
As would I.
You have proposed a resolution here. Well, what I want to do, I think what we want to do is give us a chance to review this and tweak it, so we won't be voting on it tonight. I will say in response, only in quick response to Mrs. Bertram, and I understand her position fully. The one thing I would say is that this has a very strict timeline, and the fact that they stonewall information from us is, to me, a telegraphing of what their intentions are. They have no intentions of sharing the details that we need to make a decision, and that in and of itself is not a yellow flag to me. It is a red flag to me that they are waiting out the clock to get through this process with giving as little, if no, information as possible, including the detail of where the pipeline is going to go.
And, you know, I'm very interested to read the resolution that's proposed, and I'm not necessarily for or against at this point. I'm going to take everything, read it. If the resolution were simply because of the lack of information and the potential impact to the citizens of Lunenburg, then I would be in favor of that.
So we'll let that come forward. You want to speak?
Yeah,
Sure.
there was a recent article regarding this in the Current Ledger.
Sure.
Regarding Article 97 of the Mass Constitution, and basically it's for the protection of designated 97 lands, like conservation land, parks. So I didn't know if you had a copy of that or read it, but basically, if we have any designated land, Article 97 land in town, that may be a way to... It's a leg to stand on that from the state level, not just from the town level.
Send us an email
Yeah.
with that
I can give you that.
reference.
I have the
Oh,
article right here. I think.
okay. Great, excellent, thank you.
And also, I'd just like to submit a letter regarding one of the statements.
Sure, okay. Yep, nope, I appreciate it. Here's from Ms. Miros. Okay, so. Okay. What?
Just ask a quick question?
Yes.
The lateral, is that what we're calling it? Is that, I'm familiar with this section that goes through. This is brand new?
Yeah.
This will be constructed, dug? Okay.
Yes.
And if the assumption is it's going to get probably tied into the existing system at some point?
It-
Okay.
Can I have one more thing?
Sure.
This gentleman, I missed his name, he's talking about Chapter 97 lands. I put a lot of those on a GIS layer. And the thing is, Lunenburg has a lot of lands that places like Mass Audubon and other agencies that conserve important parcels are interested in preserving. And Lunenburg has a lot of land that isn't under Chapter 97, but people think is important to preserve. So I think that's something you need to consider too.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else have any comment on that before we close that? Okay, we will take that up on, put that back on our February 3rd meeting, yes, please. Okay, 8 o'clock. We have a joint meeting with the Green Communities Task Force to discuss project status of the energy conservation policy. Are you gentlemen ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, we're ready.
So, a while back, I came in front of the board, presented a proposal for an energy policy for the buildings. This is part of our 25% reduction that we signed up for when we became a green community. Just kind of anxious because we were hoping to have feedback and be able to get started on some of these things and get started moving forward on it. This was one of the topics we wanted to discuss with you guys tonight, but there's a couple of other things also that we need to discuss as a task force. So I have most of my task force members here with me. I got 3 out of 4, so I thought that was pretty good. and things like that. So first, if you want, we can go over this, the policy. You guys can tell me how you want to do this, but we can either go over the policy or go over the other items first, but it's your choice.
You asked for the meeting, so we'll let...
All right, great. First, I'll ask if you had a chance to review the policy, and if there's comments, thoughts, concerns, and how do we move forward?
Go ahead.
I'll start. The last time we talked about this policy, I think at least some of us got hung up on the concept of an energy czar and having an individual appointed in each building. I had the opportunity to talk to John Londa, the school facilities director, today, and asked him how they handle this on their side. And he is this person for all of the school buildings. So my thought would be on our side for all of the municipal buildings, potentially with the exception of the library, but all of the buildings that are under the jurisdiction of the town manager, that we have one person, and that person be somebody in our facilities department, rather than having somebody in each building handling all of these responsibilities, because I think that is too much for one person to be responsible for. So I think if we had for everything except for the library, and I single out the library because the library is the one building that is under the jurisdiction of the Library Board of Trustees, and I think that the trustees should have the option of appointing somebody. Hopefully, they would appoint the same person, and we would have one person who would be responsible for all of that. But with that, or bearing that in mind, I am in support of the policy as it's presented.
And did Mr. Londa have any questions or comments? I see Mr. Londa's in the audience, about the particulars of the individual details of what the cooling and heating levels would be. I know that was part of our conversation when this was initially presented too.
So, I mean, on the proposal we...
Coming
okay,
up, I just wanted to ask him a question.
Yeah, this is what we had, was no higher than 70.
So, on that, with the school department, as we do that, we have these set standards, and pretty much those are what everybody has to live with. And, if there are complaints, oh, it's too cold, too hot, we deal with those and go look.
But do those standards...
Those are the standards that we're using, and...
Already?
Yes,
Okay.
and, some people like it cool, some people like it. We do look at some adjustments, but pretty much those are the standards, and that's kind of what we live with. So it drives the energy use substantially. It also doesn't give them much, we don't really give much leeway.
Right. I mean, one of the things we talked about when it was originally presented, what this board spoke about, was there was some questions about the details of what the actual numbers were, and we wanted to distribute it to the people in the buildings to get their comments, and that's one of the reasons it wasn't adopted then, aside from the fact that a few of us, probably myself included, not probably, definitely myself included, didn't like anything being called an energy czar. The whole idea of czar just is distasteful, but... And I think we should probably rewrite that last introductory sentence, which currently says each building will appoint an individual to audit, monitor, review, and update procedures. And then, as per the town manager, we should say that we're going to adopt somebody for the schools, somebody to represent the town, and somebody to represent the library. Is that correct? Okay, so if we can just make that change.
Mr. Chairman, my only concern on that, and I'm not suggesting we have somebody for each building, but I think that one of the things we discussed when we talked about this is that we wanted to at least make sure that while all of these things sound like good policy and good green energy saving policy, there may be some business related or operational related things in a given work group or building that necessitates a deviation, and we wanted input from every building or from every work group. I don't think we need to have a person in each, but
Right.
There should be some kind of method to ensure that that's taken into consideration, that's all.
So, for example, the Eagle House, the senior center, is that thermostat acceptable to them? I mean, that's one of the questions that I have. Is that what they're kind of living in with now? I mean, I don't want to come down and say to each building, these are the requirements, and then that doesn't work with their operation.
I think with any policy, you implement it, and if there are changes that need to be made, then we make those changes. I am not aware of any operations that we have that would have a difficulty meeting these requirements. Frankly, I'm thrilled to think that Town Hall may be 70 degrees, because for the most of the time, it's between 60 and 64. So if somebody is responsible to make sure it's 70 degrees, I love that person.
Sorry, it says no higher than.
That's actually one of my questions, is the thermostat, although the thermostat may be set to 70 degrees in this building, I worked here for 18 years, and I know you could set the building at 70, and you were going to, some days, it wasn't going to be 60. So back then, and I don't know what happens now, we would turn it up so that we could be in the building. So that's one of my questions, is if we make a policy that the thermostat cannot be set higher than 70, is it implementable for every building?
Okay, can I address a little bit? So this idea was just, it was a set policy. I mean, part of the idea that we had with you guys was that once this policy was done, if the individual buildings are saying, this room's too hot, this room's too cold, we would look at the rooms and just try to figure it out. Maybe it's as simple as a vent is not adjusted the right way, or something to that effect. This was supposed to be a start to get us to look at, why are the buildings so bad? Or why are people having troubles? Why is one person sitting there with a heater in the middle of the winter, and another person is sitting there in a t-shirt in the same building? So this just was a starting point of where we go. I mean, like you say, most of you folks at home, 70 in the winter, 76 in the summer. I mean, it's what you're going to do at home. It should be similar to what should be at work, is really the thought on the numbers. But the idea was that we need to look at the bigger picture, but I need to start at least with something to get started to move towards the bigger picture. We met with the library tonight, and they talked about how some rooms they have an energy management system on the building that has never worked. Well, maybe this is where we're talking to each individual in the building, and one of the reasons we're looking at it as an individual in the building, to kind of look and say, hey guys, this room's hot, this room's cold, this spot is good, this spot is bad, and let's look at how the systems in the building end up working. We gotta fix what's going on before it becomes worse. I mean, this building, I can understand why it never gets you can't get it to 70, because you can probably, open a wall and see right outside. Why bother to have windows if you can just take some sheetrock down? But the fact of the matter is that, that's a bigger picture than things like that. There's other buildings that are newer, or that have been done, that need to we need to figure out what's going on and correct them as quickly as we can.
I couldn't agree more. But my question is, we implement the policy, and if we take the approach that the town manager is recommending with one individual for the town, anyone who's having a problem in the building, say their office is too cold, they would then contact that one individual, and that one individual would then come to the Green Communities group?
Well, that's part of the second half of our discussion. So, I mean, it's something that, as a town, whoever it is, I mean, if it's whoever that has the building under their jurisdiction needs to look at that. Why is their building taking up so much energy? Why is their building, in general, we should be looking at this. We're just a task force that, got appointed to look at becoming a green community. We've kind of taken a charter further than we did. We don't seem to have, there's nothing that allows us to do anything in this town. We just can make suggestions to folks, and hopefully that it's implemented. But the fact of the matter is, what good is telling us? Because we can't do anything.
Who's in charge of Town Hall now?
Well, all of the facilities are under DPW.
Okay.
Yeah, and
so I would say they'd be calling DPW.
Right, and that is what happens.
Which is what they do now.
Yes.
Right, but is anybody at DPW looking at understanding the facilities and, adjusting dampers or adjusting this, adjusting that to try to correct these issues?
I would say yes.
The answer is, yeah, exactly. That would have been my answer, yes. I mean, obviously, everything, let me just take the bird's eye view, first of all.
Right.
It's a policy.
Right.
Right? It's not a law that is punishable by anything. It's what our goals should be. This is what we should set if the parameters allow it to be set. That means if a building can be kept to these, then it should be. But if obviously the building envelope doesn't allow it, sure, we're not going to say, oh, you're breaking the policy and you're cranking up the heat in town hall. I mean, again, it's a goal to shoot for and make adjustments to change things so that everybody eventually can be doing it. But all of that, of course, falls under the guise of what resources do we have available? Is everybody checking the damper? No, they're not checking it every day because we have limited manpower, we have limited budget, and some of these changes require substantial investment. So, I
Understand.
mean, making this building suitable for truly insulated is a big endeavor, both as a project, man-hour-wise, and budget-wise.
Right.
So, I think we need to adopt this to get started on the ground level. And as the town manager said, if things come up that says, you know what, this is really not implementable, this is not achievable, we either have to ask why and change the policy or change the parameters that we're working under. But you can change it once it's implemented. I think right now we really need to implement one. And I think these are good goals to set on the outset.
Well, one of the first things that in the intro paragraph, it says each individual building will have a plan or standard operating procedure developed that specifies hours of usage, maximum and minimum settings, and equipment operating procedures. Is that something we plan to do?
Yes.
We should?
Okay,
Yeah.
so we're going to have the DPW do that?
Well, or Mr. Londa for the schools.
Well, for the town.
Right, for the town, yeah.
So we would have to do that for the town and the library.
Yep.
I think it's a great thing. I just want to make sure that we all understand exactly what we're asking. And I do have a problem with the word czar.
Yeah, well, I think we're just striking that.
I would make a motion that we adopt the Town of Lunenburg Green Policy with the revision that the last sentence of the first paragraph state that the school, Board of Selectmen, and library will appoint an individual to audit, monitor, review, update procedures.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of those changes and the adoption of the policy with that modification, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None.
Okay, thank you on that part.
You're welcome. Thank you for doing the policy.
All right. All right. Next thing I'd like to have to address, we need to address with you as a group, that's why I've asked them to, is basically our charter moving forward as we go. Okay, so to give the Green Community Task Force was put into place to investigate whether or not the town wanted to be a green community. So we investigated, and we presented to you guys that we thought it would be a good idea. We went ahead, spent the time trying to convince the townsfolks to adopt the stretch code. After a couple of town meetings, we got that approved. With that, we became a green community, received $152,000 in grant, and we've been moving forward, trying to get things done. That is a lot of our frustration, is right now we feel like we're a group that's, our whole charter is just to make sure that try to get somebody to spend the grant money that we've gotten approved on it. Some of the projects we've had to table, obviously anything we do to the anything we do to Town Hall got tabled because nobody knows what's happening with Town Hall just yet. And other projects that we have. It's a matter of right now, we need to figure out how we go forward. I mean, we've been trying for 5-6 months now to get the exterior lighting at the library and the public safety building done, and we haven't gotten, the cooperation hasn't been there. Little things that we're getting. I mean, I went to the Eagle House last week and counted up light bulbs, which is something that we were looking to do. So we're looking to do things, and we want to basically understand what you guys are looking from us anymore. If it's to just manage the grant money, let us know, and we'll figure out what we're going to do as a group. Or if you have other ideas of what you want what you want as a green community for your task force to do, let us know that, because we need to figure out what's next for this group right now.
Anybody have any comments to that?
What do other communities turn their Green Communities Task Force into? Have they broadened it? Have they put them in charge of the buildings, or what have they done?
It's not been as much as putting them in charge of the building. However, they've been giving them they've been going to the by the way, it's a green committee in most towns, not a task force. And that as a committee, they have some kind of say in what's going on. But they've been going to them, like if there's a new building being built, they make sure they contact the green committee to make sure that they're aware of it, that there's any grant, that we can advise of any monies or grant monies or anything to be done. We're part of the review. We're part of the process, more than anything like that. You've appointed us, this group, as folks that have studied what it is to go green, studied some of the energy efficiency policies. However, nobody's utilizing us. We just feel like we're just out there.
First of all, because this was brought up before you came here earlier in the meeting, because we had discussed this. You had brought this up at one of the last times, and I
Right.
thought we had already decided that we were going to continue, and I was under the impression, and I may be mistaken, that we already changed the charter, that it wasn't a task force anymore, and it was a green
Committee.
committee.
No, we still stayed as a
Okay,
task force.
so maybe that technically wasn't voted on, and I was under the impression that it already was.
Okay.
So we should do that. My understanding is exactly what you just described, what a green committee does. I mean, again, it's going to be an advisory committee, and it's going to be somebody who manages grant opportunities, energy conservation opportunities within the town, and brings them to the appropriate boards or committees. Whether it's a building committee, or whether it's the Board of Selectmen, whether it's town meeting, whether it's the planning board, in their review, but basically manages to make sure we stay a green community. That is my understanding of what the committee was, we had discussed that it would change into.
I would agree. That was my recollection as well. I think you had come in and said the task force is done. Now we need to be a green committee, and I thought that we had done that. And actually, I recall a list of goals and grant opportunities and suggestions that had come forward from someone about specific tasks moving forward. So I would agree with the chairman that was my understanding. Is certainly your feedback is appreciated. Your recommendations are appreciated. You have studied this issue. And as the chair said, if there's a building going on, I certainly would expect that you would give input into that process.
So as an example for us, for example, the first notification that we got about the middle school, high school was when Unitil and National Grid told us, by the way, there's money available if you got us involved sooner. And that's, we were never even approached or involved at all in this building. We weren't approached in the DPW building when the DPW building went up. We weren't asked what can be done or anything to that effect. I mean, it's just one of those things that we're sitting here, and if you have this and you have us as a committee, tell somebody to get, that they have to come to us or something like that. I mean, we're looking to be more than just pushing grant money around, okay? I mean, and more than just being, doing paperwork for it, as well as we want to get these projects done. I mean, this town received its first quarter of the $152,000. We haven't even gotten cooperation to spend that first quarter because we can't get the projects off the ground right now. I can't get anybody to take ownership. Nobody's telling them to take ownership.
Right. Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm emotional about it because it's the frustration there.
You're passionate about it, that's great. Passion is good. I mean, your charge is to let people know you don't have, your board, your committee doesn't have an authority over the people. And I know that's frustrating. And I know it's frustrating a lot of times when people are on boards. If you're frustrated with projects not getting done as quickly as you'd like, welcome to the club.
Okay.
So, I mean, one of the things we want to do is we want your board to tell us, hey, listen, we've had this money. We really need some weight. We really need some attention to be paid to these. Can we get any of these? Are any of these lower or easier to achieve than some of the other ones? And let's do that. But we're working with boards, and we, as a board, have to work with other elected boards. And the Library Board of Trustees is an elected board that takes care of their building. We can't dictate to them what to do. The Planning Board is an elected board. We can't tell them. We can certainly let people know, hey, we have a Green Communities Committee, and they should be involved. But we as a Board of Selectmen can't dictate to the Planning Board that they do that. We can only suggest, we can talk about it, we can have workshops with them. So it's frustrating not having a charge, not having the authority to say, implement this. Not please implement this, but implement this. It's a lot easier to do things that way. But that's not the way things work, of course. And I understand, I share that frustration.
Okay.
But we don't want people to lose the passion that made them want to join to begin with, because things don't move as fast as they might otherwise. I mean, we need people to keep attention to them. That's how things get done.
The other thing is that the library does not do its own building. They're under the DPW. They take care of that. And the DPW person who was doing that had some health issues, so that's some of the issue of why the library and the DPW may have fallen off the tracks. I think that with the policy that we've adopted and the fact that we assume there's probably going to be somebody from DBW, and I believe that the library will probably also be doing DBW because they work well with them, that I think that plus we need to resurrect the change charge that we have for the committee, that we send that out to all town committees that have anything to do with any energy related, whether they have a building or not. If they have a vehicle, they should be sent this information because the policy deals with that as well.
Right.
And I think that without polling everybody, I believe everybody supports what you're doing and knows that the goal of reducing our energy use, and energy is only going to continue to go up, and energy is only going to be, an issue, and that we need to deal with the environment. So we thank you what you're doing, but I think that you've got a bunch of people that are supporting all of you here.
And I appreciate that. I mean, I think we as a group, we do appreciate that. I say I just need help. We need help getting things done. I'm trying to find some notes here, so bear with me a second here. Getting things done. It's been a long time. We've been, there's projects they've been trying to push through since July, August, that still haven't gotten done. And that's frustrating to a lot of the folks here. I mean, we can't get our second and third installments until we get installment 1 done. And the last thing I want to do is put the whole idea of the rest of the grant money in jeopardy just because we're not even getting close to accomplishing our goals, type of thing.
And that's the report that you would send to us saying, listen, I think we
Exactly.
may be jeopardizing that, and I think we need to go forward. And we need, when we have advisory committees, one of the major things that they do for us is we don't have the time to pay attention to every one of them. That's why they're other committees. And we need people to say, hey, listen, put a spotlight on something. This is important right now. We need this to be addressed.
Right, if you could highlight the specific projects, what's involved in those projects, what the deadlines are, when the next payment, when you want to submit for that. I mean, we don't have any of that information. So if you could send that to us, that certainly would be helpful.
I mean, we can give you almost verbally for what's going on next. I mean, we only have X amount. I mean, one of the things is the LED, the exterior lighting. Mr. Londa took the time to go and get the three quotes. So we're going to be moving forward with that. On our own. One of the next steps for us was doing the interior lighting, the LED interior lighting at the Eagle House, as well as the tightening up the envelope. Need somebody to contact Mass Save for the DPW. If anybody's been up in the attic there, there's a reason why their heat bill is so large, because there's something missing up there called insulation. And, this is something that could be done for free. I mean, we have we pay good money to the state. We're just trying to get the folks to utilize what's out there.
I'm for all of that.
Okay, so that's what I'm asking. So I'm asking it right now. I need help. I need somebody to push down and say, guys, there's money. We need you to do something to help with these buildings, and this is what we need you. This is the steps we need you to take. I mean, it's as simple as looking around. I went through the Eagle House. I took an inventory of lights. I have a rough idea of what could be done. We have certain funds that we have available. We have other things that we can do for them. More than happy to do for them. As far as the tightening of the envelope, we have money set aside that we have already approved by the state for that. We want to try to utilize Mass Save first, see what they're going to give us for free. And then from there, if we have to kick in some more, there's money available. I mean, we're trying to make it so that there's money available for the group, for the town, for everybody that wants to do things to cut the budget. There's money available, sitting there. Let's get it done. That's all I'm saying right now, is everybody's complaining about how the electric went up, how the heat went up, how this went up. We're trying to help, and just want to get it done already. I mean, 6 months of spinning our wheels and just voting to move forward, but not moving forward, is getting frustrated. And, I tell you right now, the group is getting frustrated, and I don't want to, I'm trying to avoid a mass exodus, really, for you guys.
And my understanding of the library meeting with you tonight is to possibly replace the Ritter or this building's energy things, to possibly look at the inside of the library for all the large electric uses there. So there may be some opportunity to switch projects.
We still have, we actually have, we had a very large project proposed to the state that they rejected because they thought the return on investment was too long. So we actually have more funds that we need projects to submit right now. So, I'm looking for projects to submit. We have we're looking at, one of them we're going to be submitting is a proposal to convert the public safety building from oil to natural gas. So we have a company that we've contacted that's given us a bid to write out a feasibility study to move forward with that. So this town can know what they're up against for going with that. We're trying to get things done, but however, I feel like I'm here, you hear sometimes through the grapevine that there's other folks looking into that. So why are we wasting our time looking into it if there's other folks looking into it too? No, so I just want to make sure that, people know we've tried to be open about what we're doing, present to you guys. I want to make sure that the rest of the town knows what's going on, or the rest of the boards or the rest of the groups in the town, so that they'll come and they say, hey, what can we get done? I'm excited that the library trustees are coming to us saying, you guys have money, what can we do? I'll do it, if that's the case, we'll do it the squeaky wheel. We'll get all the money. I mean, I'll put $150,000 towards the library if that's the case. But that's not what we're looking to do. We want to make sure this is for everybody. And what the town feels also is going to be the best move.
I think if you could draft an email that outlines what you hope to do and what you hope to accomplish with this grant money and the types of projects that would be eligible under that grant, I think that through the town manager, we could forward that to the departments and to the DPW, so that if individuals do have a project that they want to suggest, they have the information and the guidelines under which to suggest that. I do just want to state, I know the DPW is very, very short-staffed. One of the individuals is very ill.
I understand.
So, the DPW is operating with a very, very small staff, as is every department. We are a bare bones operation. So while I understand your frustration, just understand that they're trying to balance many different hats with short staff. So
Understand. And believe me, I'm of all the folks. We're the folks who have trouble getting a meeting together because we can't, three of us are not in town at the same time. So we understand with short staff, and we understand all those concerns, everything with that, and we definitely empathize with that. But however, we're still looking to try to get things done. It's okay. It's just we're trying to make it so that it's simple. It's as least amount of that they have to, as little as possible. However, we're still not here. I'm not the one, we're not the ones that can walk around and show somebody around the buildings or things like that, or have the time.
And that's correct. And so that I with most of your committee here, I want to say, to echo what Mr. Ebersol said, I thank you for all that. And we want people to be committed to that. But you just have to know that you're not the implementing body, and sometimes that gets frustrating. That you are the ones who are saying, hey, listen, this is what you can do. This is what we suggest you do with the money. We can flesh out the project as much as you want, but at some point it's got to be handed over to somebody who actually has the authority to say, you can make these changes to this building, which is the whole ranking of, up through the DPW to the town manager and everybody allocating money.
Well, for example, the Mass Save. I mean, I would assume, and I don't know, but you've talked to Doreen Noble and to the DPW director and about contacting Mass Save, or?
We've talked to our DPW representative when they were able to make our meetings. However, obviously it hasn't happened, in recent months, but, we've been talking about this for a while.
Well, I certainly think that putting together an email outlining the projects you've identified, the funds that are still available, and the types of projects that would be eligible for that grant funding would certainly be helpful. I know it would be for me to understand what specific projects you're working on that you're frustrated with, as well as what other funds are available for other projects and what types of projects.
And I think that the report that you gave us before that ranked all of those, and then what was shown, then we actually approved it for the grant application. It'd be good to have that again, because that often gets off our radar.
Okay.
And, in the star of the ones that this is moving forward, this one's on hold, but is it really on hold? Is there something we can do in the town hall that may be good for the short term, knowing that no matter what happens, we're looking 2 to 3 years down the line? Therefore, we could maybe move the lights later, or you don't, or something. That type of thing would be very helpful to us.
Yep.
Is it possible to contract work out ever? I mean, you think about insulating at the Eagle House. I mean, geez, if the attic isn't insulated, that's really a hole to throw money in. Money is just going through the roof. Can we contract small jobs out?
We do.
Yes, and it has to be contracted out because we don't have, I mean, we have a facilities department of 2 individuals, one who has been mentioned this evening who is out on medical leave and has been out for 3 months and probably will be out longer. So any of this we have to contract out, which we probably would do if we were up to full staff anyway, because we don't, our our facilities people don't really do that work.
And please understand, that was our thought, was this is going to be contracted out. But our first thought was to see what the state, see what's out there, see what the state will do for you. Then we would look towards a contractor for the rest of the thing. So little things like, look, the retrofit to LED lights, it's a contractor doing that. The 2 projects that have already been completed have been the variable frequency drives and the compressors at the middle school. We hired a contractor to do that, but they were done free. The school committee got a bill for $0 for doing, well, actually they got a bill, what was shipping, John? That was about it? So like $250 to, that's it. That was their whole bill that we were able to do. So the idea is that we're trying to, this is all based on contractors, not as individuals. Maybe the only thing we're looking at as individuals is if we were changing these lights to LEDs, probably have an individual probably do that instead of hiring a contractor for $85 an hour to walk in here and do that. But,
But
that's...
you still have to have somebody that's going to supervise the contractor, and that's part of the process of the town manager.
Right.
With the DPW and the schools would be doing that.
Right. So if you can give that initial document that Mr. Ebersol referenced, where we approved it, and then the summary, just a quick summary page saying, these are the ones that we feel as a committee should be, the easiest to achieve, and can we see if we can get some of these moving?
Okay. So another thing that we found is that originally this task force is under the planning board. Or the planning board or the planning? The planning board was originally set up as. Is that still the case?
No. It was never the case.
Right, it was never the case. It was always this board.
Because even if you hit the website, you had to go to planning board first, then you went to green. Okay.
The planning director suggested the formation, I believe, way back when, but the committee, I believe, was formed by the Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
It was, and the planning director was one of the main staff people on the committee, and I'm sure that's why
It was
your
easier to be
website
on the
is-
website.
yeah.
That's why your website is where it is.
Okay. Next question for you was, one of the things that I feel strongly about is I have, Mr. Londa has been an amazing asset to us and done more than just a town employee for us, with helping us with the grants, with writing and things like that. He is also a taxpayer in this town. I would, if we become a committee, my understanding is that he cannot be a member of our committee, just could be an advisor. I'm looking to try to be, I haven't even asked him about it, but basically, I would like him to be actually a voting member, since this is his tax money that he's working, just like the rest of us on this group that are working our tails to try to do things for this town, he's working his tail to do things for this town. There is, it's a majority vote for us, so it's not like if he has his own agenda, he can push it through. It's as a group, we have to still vote on things. But this is a citizen of Lunenburg, a taxpayer of Lunenburg, that is serving in a capacity that should be able to vote on what the group does. And I wanted to figure out how we can do that. I don't care how you want to call us or anything like that. If you have a certain charter for us and you outline the charter, you can call us whatever you want. But the fact of the matter is I want to figure out how something, how after 4 years of working on this thing, the man can get a vote on this thing.
There's no prohibition about town employees being on committees. You have a policy of not having town employees on committees and serving in an advisory capacity to give residents, and I understand Mr. Londa is a resident, but you're a town employee first if you're a town employee, but to give residents the opportunity to sit on boards and committees.
The other purpose of that is and certainly in John's case and another case where we had an opportunity of a school employee to be appointed, nothing against personally, but there are some inherent conflicts just because of a vote of voting for the school versus voting for the something else. And we try to avoid any appearance of that issue whatsoever. So nothing against John and certainly thank him for all the work that he's done. But I think that's why we've tried to have And that would be, you apparently have a vacancy on your committee, that would be an opportunity for somebody else to volunteer for this committee?
We started off as a committee of 7 with 3 alternates, and we're down to basically 4, soon to be 3, if I let them be, but, we let them be. But the fact of the matter is that's, and 3, I'm never going to get a quorum. But the fact of the matter is that's one of the things. And, he's been there for every meeting that we have. So I'm looking at it as more of, I have somebody who's been dedicated to this purpose on both sides. I mean, like I said, I struggled with the town side, and he went out and contacted contractors for both the feasibility study and the exterior lighting retrofit on 2 buildings that weren't under his jurisdiction, presented the bids to us, and as a group, we voted on the bids. So I have somebody who has the ability to, help get things done when the town's short-staffed. That's why I would like them to be able to be a full-fledged part of this group. I'm going to use the word group because, like I say, I don't care how you want to formulate it. I just want to make sure things, that we can move forward more than anything else. I mean, I would love to be able to get back to 5 members and 2 alternates, 3 alternates. I mean, I'm a true believer that an alternate becomes a member, is my first new member, when somebody decides that they don't have the time or that it's time for them to let somebody else do it. I love to have people involved in this town and get involved. Been doing it, as you guys all know, you do it, you step up, and it's a seat for life if you want it. You guys at least get the benefit of voted to, but, am I voted in? But anyway, sorry.
I don't know where you spun on the end of that, but
I know.
Anyway,
I know.
The point is, listen, when it comes to volunteerism, we announce every week that we need people.
Right.
I wish we had more people who wanted to do it. I don't know what the answer is. We have 2 people. I'll use this opportunity. There's 2 openings on the Public Access Service Committee, the Cable Committee. There's an opening still on the Finance Committee during the most important time of the year, which is budget season. So it's not like we don't acknowledge them, and that we don't acknowledge the fact that we have openings. But I can't make people volunteer. Every week we ask, so it's an ongoing issue.
Believe me, we do understand. That's what I'm saying. If I have a volunteer.
Right. Well, but the issue with Mr. Ebersol summed it up very well, and I'm certainly in his camp. I mean, I hesitate to break that because it does have inherent problems with it. And again, just to reiterate, this is no statement against Mr. Lander, who I think does a first-rate job all the time in all his service to the town. But there was a time in another committee we didn't do the same thing with another school committee and other employees in town. It's just not something we want to avoid doing.
Okay. Well, like I said, I was in the campaign for trying to work something to make sure we try to get that quorum going. Okay.
So how do we get to what we charge them with and the fact that they're now a committee and?
We just have to repropose it, and it's an act of this board that we need to do that.
Okay.
So.
Good.
Okay. And I need to get you just a synopsis of what's going on.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And if there are vacancies on your committee, I think we should announce them at the same time we announce all the others. So if you're down a couple of members, please let us know, and we'll.
And
I'm down a couple members.
Your committee should have been invited. You should have gotten emails about next Tuesday night. Okay, there's a volunteers appreciation social.
Okay.
Sounds like you need to dress for it, but.
Well, I get to.
I mean, you have to dress for it, but I mean, dress up for it.
It's a little cold to go out,
But anyway, and we're inviting people who are interested in serving on different boards and committees and commissions to come in, attend, and ask people. So not only do we want to appreciate all the people in your group who are doing it already, but it's a good opportunity for other potential members to speak with you about what you do.
And since it will be at the Eagle House, we'll have an opportunity to inspect the
Look
building.
the lights.
Not a problem. Well, I said if we were ready, half of them could be LED, 3/4 of them could be LED already, that type of thing. So, no problem there. Give me, if you want. Did I get everything? Get everything? Okay, just wanted to make sure I managed to address everything that we have. Any other questions for us?
No, I want to thank you for,
Thank you all.
again, thank you for your passion, all of you, and thank you for coming forward with this. I think it was a good discussion, so.
Okay, thank you.
We'll work on getting you charged as for real, if we hadn't already done it, as a Green Communities Committee.
Okay, and by the way, if you do want to, you can make us the energy czars for the town if you want, but I know you don't like the title.
Czars and Czarinas.
Huh?
Czars and Czarinas.
Yes, yes, exactly. As long as we get to collect taxes. Okay, all right, thanks, guys.
Thank
Appreciate
you
it.
very much.
Thank you.
Okay, update and status of FY 2015 goals. You have any from the town manager?
I did put together a progress report for you. I hope that I included all of the goals. I found when I went back and looked at the minutes, as you know, we're behind on minutes, and the last set of minutes that was done was the meeting right before this, but I went back on my notes. I've listed the 5 goals that I saw that were created and just given you where I think they are. The first is updating personnel policies. I think this is a task that is on schedule. We had our first meeting with the new Personnel Committee on December 4th. The next one is scheduled for February 5th. We did present them with a copy of the salary admin plan. At that meeting, we talked about some areas of concern. We also sent them copies of each of the union contracts so that they could do a comparison between benefits and policies for a contract for union employees versus non-union employees. We have several items that the payroll and benefits coordinator has drafted as for their consideration for adoption. So I think we're making good progress there. The second is creating departmental metrics. It is in process. I did identify it as behind schedule, and the reason I did that is because I guess I'm in the budget process for fiscal 16 right now. I would have liked to have put those together ahead of the budget process, so I'm not putting the budget together and the metrics together at the same time, but that didn't happen, so I will continue to move forward on that. The next was economic development. And the economic development policy, that was a joint goal between myself and this board. I identified that as in progress but behind schedule, and my thought there being that we still need to, or the planning board needs to finish the economic development element of the master plan. I think that we should be talking about a committee or a task force or something, so we need to make some forward progress.
And I think the planning board is looking for the formulation of a committee, at least in a couple of their meetings they've talked before they move forward with the economic development element. So I think that, we may want to check with the planning board how they want to proceed.
Well, I did speak with the land use director and suggested that when we have that joint work session with the planning board, that item be included as well, so we can see where everybody's at there. The next is to create a vehicle and equipment inventory list, identify useful life for each piece of equipment or vehicle, and a vehicle rotation list or policy. That is in progress. All of the departments are working on that, and I've assigned a new staff member to maintain the townwide inventory, and this being part of that. So that is in progress. And the last is continued progress on tax takings and periodic updates. I think that's something, it's in process, and I would say that it's on schedule. We have special counsel that we work with that processes tax takings that are ripe through the land court, and we're looking at the oldest or highest value cases. We have assigned him 10 at a time. He has actually completed some. They've come back, and the town is owner on that. So the same staff person who is doing the townwide inventory is also going to be responsible for maintaining a list of all town-owned property. And once she finishes that, we'll make a presentation to you. And then I did make a note that the fiscal 14 takings are awaiting the appointment of a treasurer by law. The only the appointed treasurer can process tax takings, not a temporary treasurer, not the assistant treasurer. So, this is the time of year that we do that. We have 3 years to perfect the taking, so I'm not concerned. But that's something that will need to be taken up once we have a treasurer appointed.
Any questions for the town manager? Okay.
Thank you.
Minutes,
No minutes.
warrants. School construction warrant in the amount of $1,477,244.81. And accounts payable in the amount of $277,713.44. Action file issues. Okay, committee reports, Board of Health,
No report?
Building Reuse,
No report.
Capital Planning,
Capital planning goes before the Finance Committee on this Thursday evening. Actually, I'll combine the two reports. The Finance Committee begins their budget review processes this Thursday. Their meetings for the rest of the process will be televised, and the first group up is the Capital Planning Committee. So we'll be going Thursday night as part of that meeting.
excellent. Library Board of Trustees,
Library met last Thursday, as was mentioned with the Green Community Committee. They did talk a lot about energy, the extra energy usage they're going to be having in their budget as a result of the increased fees and what they could do working with the Green Committee in order to try to replace various lights. They have a lot of expensive lights inside. They finalized their draft budget to be submitted to the town manager. The land use director, the chair of the planning board, and the chair of the buildings reuse subcommittee all attended at the invitation of the library to discuss their involvement in the village district bylaw drafting process, as well as the building reuse process, since they're neighbors to the Passio School and the Brooks House. It was a very good discussion between the two, between all members at that point. So that's the report for the library.
okay, MPO,
The last meeting of the MPO was on the 14th, which was Wednesday. Basically, it was just updates on various things. The coordinated public transit plan, they did review our comments and take them under advisement. They are making some adjustments to the plan, as well as some comments from other entities. There was a presentation on an intersection of John Fitch Highway and North Street Pearl Hill Road that they're going to be looking at for safety concerns. The regional transportation plan update, which is something that's ongoing, is something that we may want to comment on. As we discussed tonight, there is an increased need in Lunenburg for transit and bus routes, increased transportation options for Lunenburg citizens. And the regional transportation plan looks at the whole region and areas that there are gaps in coverage and makes recommendations. So we may want to send some comments over. There are a number of open houses that are scheduled, and they're on the MRPC website. The next one is February 18th at the New Cafe in Gardner at 1 o'clock, which the focus will be on transit. And then there's another one that evening at 7 o'clock at Great Wolf Lodge in Fitchburg. But we also have an opportunity to send comments over to MRPC, so we may want to take a look at that, and there's a link on their website to the RTP plan and some information on the update process. The couple updates in the region, the Leominster Mechanic Street improvements are in process and moving forward. The Wachusett Station, which may be of interest to everybody, that's delayed to the summer of 2016. And that's all that I have. Phyllis, you were there. Did you have anything you wanted to add? Or?
Oh, that was great.
Okay.
Okay, planning board.
No update specifically, but I do want to remind people that on the 26th, the planning board will be reviewing the village district bylaw, so people have an opportunity to come and listen and provide comments.
That's next Monday, correct?
That's Monday here at 6:30.
This coming Monday.
Right.
School committee.
The school committee will meet tomorrow night. I read the superintendent's memo on the agenda today. They're going to go over the calendar feedback for FY16, and they're going to go over the proposed budget again. In the superintendent's memo, she said under personnel line items, we have incorporated all the recommended personnel additions into this budget. The overall increase is 9%. This will be the budget that's posted at the website and which will be presented at the budget hearing, and that the superintendent will present to FinCom.
Okay.
So that will be discussed tomorrow night.
School building committee met last Wednesday. Nothing of note. The construction continues on schedule. As you can see from different points of Oak Ave and Mass Ave, you can see the steel structure going up in what is called Section A, and that is progressing well. The rest of the foundation is being completed. Because of the cold temperatures, obviously some of the concrete is, they have to have it covered in tube to keep it warm, so that is slowing progress of some of the concrete, but the foundation is done, the site work and the backfilling is just about completed already, and then steel will go up in the other three sections B to D, as one completes. So everything is on schedule and everything is on budget. Next meeting is going to be February 11th, but it'll be at the construction trailer at the site this time. So, Sewer Commission.
Sewer Commission met last Tuesday. I was able to, as a result of us getting out early, I was able to attend part of their meeting. They completed their budget process. They have a balanced budget without rate increase again. They are continuing to process their capital needs that don't fall within the capital plan, but just generally what they want to do going forward in the future.
Excellent.
I'd like to comment on the MART meeting, because I went to the quarterly meeting this morning.
Okay.
The MART Advisory Board quarterly meeting was held this morning. The administrator, Mo Khan, has said that MART is taking steps to end the fiscal year in the black. I think the state has mandated that transit authorities have to start operating in the black at the end of the fiscal year, and that's what he's trying to do. And they're, of course, discussing adding fixed route in Lunenburg, adding commuter bus van service in Littleton, Boxborough, and Devons to coordinate with the MBTA rail service. They are hiring a controller right now. They're proposing fare increase, and they're going to have public hearings. They haven't increased the fares since 2007. They finished a comprehensive service analysis, and they're making some recommendations to reduce redundancy and make the routes a little bit leaner. They are making improvements to the commuter rail corridor between Fitchburg and Boston. The Wachusett Commuter Rail Extension Project, which is station parking overlay facility, they think that it'll be done by December of 2016 now because of the delay. And they're making parking improvements at the Air Rail Trail facility.
Excellent. Town manager reports.
I'd like to just take a minute to talk about the budget. The governor issued a press release today pegging the deficit in the current fiscal year at about $765 million. I sent you something that actually came to me from the superintendent, and it came to the superintendent through her network. It was actually some good information, and I hadn't seen it otherwise. It's interesting to read the causes for the deficit. They seem to be everything, but not what the previous governor stated. But I mean, there's some expenditure overages. There's some issues with revenues over, I think, overzealous revenue projections and some things. The governor has stated that he is not looking to cut local aid, which is good for us in fiscal 15, but I think it will come back to haunt us in fiscal 16. We're far enough into our own fiscal year here where we're starting to see where some of our vulnerability is with the budget. The Finance Committee will be talking about a couple of requests for reserve fund transfer from the Police Department for vehicle maintenance, from the Fire Department for vehicle maintenance, and from the library for their electricity, increase in electric costs. I have mentioned to you before, I have a little bit of a concern with our health insurance because our renewal for retirees, which is on January 1st, came in a little bit higher than what we projected. And if everything goes according to the projections, we potentially could have a deficit of about $12,000 in health insurance. I don't think we'll end up with a deficit, but we're not going to end up with any significant surplus there, which we had in prior years. We've had a fairly mild winter in terms of the expenditures for snow and ice, but we've expended about $210 of a $260,000 budget because most of our budget goes for materials. And we've used materials. We haven't had to plow a whole lot, but we've had many sanding and salting operations. And when we have to plow a lot, that's when we go over the budget. So the budget that we have, even in a year that seems mild to most people, we intend to expend most of it because it's for the purchase of materials. So I don't expect, anytime we have a winter like this, people expect that we're going to have a surplus in that area, and I don't see that as well. We also have an issue with choice tuitions that the superintendent has been working very diligently on to help, but we've had a significant increase in students attending school outside of Lunenburg through the choice program. And so we're working on that. But it looks like we have a significant exposure there of about $135,000 over what we budgeted. And the problem with that is it just has to be accounted for in the year. It comes to us as cherry sheet, so the state will just deduct it. We are happy to be working on this problem at this time because usually it comes to us in the fourth quarter after town meeting, and it's tough to make an adjustment even if we have the money, the appropriation somewhere, because we're limited in how we can transfer appropriations outside of a town meeting vote. So my concern with the issues that we're facing in fiscal 15 is the impact more on fiscal 16 in terms of state aid, potentially a reduction in state aid. I don't really see any increases in state aid coming as a result of the state's budget issues. And I also, in the target budget, in the forecast, I had planned on using a certain amount of free cash to fund capital, which we've been doing for the last several years. And I want to say it was probably about $265,000, and I don't see that money will be available for capital, certainly not in that same amount, because we may need some of that to plug some of these holes this year. So this is my, I guess, my roundabout way of saying that I don't expect that the budget that I present for fiscal 16 at the beginning of February is going to be as high as the target budget. I think it's going to be less than target, which is not where I hoped to be, not where we were this year. I really had hoped that we would be able to fund the target level budgets, but I don't see that is happening. I've mentioned to you before that the governor's budget, because we have a new governor, is coming out a month later than what we typically see, and it will be after I have to give the budget here. So it makes it difficult to project anything more than level funding for state aid, and it might even be necessary to back state aid down somewhat. I don't think significant, because I don't have any data. I mean, the joint revenue, whatever the joint legislative committee, whatever they call themselves, that they work on, the Revenue Consensus Committee, they won't have even had their meeting. They typically have that in December. They won't even have that till the beginning of February. So there just isn't going to be any information on state aid for fiscal 16. So I wish it was better news. Hopefully it will get better as we go through the process. But at least the first cut with the budget is not going to be at target level.
Any questions for the town manager? No interviews, no executive session. So next week, we do not have a meeting, but next week, as I announced at the beginning of this meeting, we will have the Volunteer Appreciation Social at the Eagle House from 6 to 8. So again, please come by if you are a volunteer. Come by if you're interested in being a volunteer. Come by if you want to say thank you to a volunteer.
And is that on the website or on the scroll? And if not, could we get it on the website and the scroll?
I can. I haven't put it there yet, but I can.
Okay.
Any final public comment from the board? Any final public comment from the public? I want to thank all of you who stayed for tonight's meeting. It's nice to not be alone as I look in the audience, so thank you. All right, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, none. Good night, everyone. Good night.